Hello guys, Chris here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, we are gonna be testing the RTX 3060 12GB model with ray tracing in 10 different games. So this one is the Afox model of the card. It released in September of 2021. It has 3584 CUDA cores, 28 ray tracing cores, and 112 tensor cores. That's what matters for this video, you know, because ray tracing. Now, as I mentioned, this is the 12GB model of the card. If you have the 8GB version, it's a much slower GPU, so keep that in mind. And those 12GB might come in handy when it comes to running ray tracing, because RT actually uses a ton of VRAM. That said, in terms of raw power and raw performance of this thing, I'm not really sure if it's very capable of running ray tracing in games, because RT is super intensive, as you probably know, so we'll definitely need to utilize some DLSS with it. But enough with that, let's throw some games and beautiful reflections at this thing, shall we? Let's go over the PC specs now. We're pairing the card with a Ryzen 7 5800X3D and 32GB of RAM, and you can find out more info down in the description for like the power supply, motherboard, and so on. And let's start with the one and only Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p. Not gonna play at higher resolutions in this video because with ray tracing, 3060 can't really handle that. And we're using the Ray Tracing Ultra preset without DLSS and without motion blur. So I'm not gonna touch anything, I'm not gonna set this to Psycho, there's no point really. And over here, we're using high crowd density. And we're getting 30s. Well, that's not too bad, considering that this is actually native resolution, and with RT you really need to utilize some DLSS. I will use it in just a little bit, but what's surprising me the most is that it is actually getting around the same FPS as it did in my full Cyberpunk 2077 3060 video, and I tested that with the sun shadows off, although there is no sun at the moment, so that's probably why it's pretty much the same thing, and the ray trace lighting on medium, and now it's on ultra, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference to FPS, but it is very unplayable. As you can see, it drops into the 20s very often, so we need to utilize some quality DLSS here. Below quality, it actually looks really soft, and I don't recommend it, and on quality, it makes it very playable, as you can see. Still nothing that I would consider with a 3060, because if you disable RT, you can get 60 plus FPS in this game, and it will feel a lot smoother and better, of course. But hey, at least we're getting playable frames right now and not 20s and 30s all of the times, which is really good. I think it won't really drop from 40 frames per second now that we enabled ray tracing. It also looks slightly sharper than native resolution with DLSS in this game, because it has forced TAA at native res, and it looks pretty soft, you know, not as soft as like Hogwarts Legacy, for example, but it looks soft, and with DLSS it is a little bit sharper, so you might actually enjoy it better with DLSS enabled than without DLSS. Oh, there we go, Bob. You haven't done that in a while. It's Cyberbug after all, my friends. Cyberbug is back, and I love to see it. Next, we got Fortnite with the Unreal Engine 5.1. It looks really impressive, this game right now, and we're running it at 1080p DirectX 12 using the Epic settings, but I made a few adjustments, because a lot of you told me that these two settings, instead of being set to Epic, if they're set to high, they look pretty much the same and they perform way better. And we still have real-time global illumination right here with the Lumen High setting, as well as the real-time ray-traced reflection. Alright guys, we're approaching the mega city right now. Oh my god, that stutter though. Oh. Now, the stuttering is the worst part when it comes to ray tracing in Fortnite. It's too much, guys. Okay, when you enable that setting, even on high-end systems, it stutters a heck of a lot. So I really do not recommend it in this one. And as you can see, if you want to keep the native resolution, it gets 40s. Could be worse, obviously. Like, it looks extremely good and the reflections are all there and everything. It's really nice, but it's only for screenshots, basically. If you want to play this game properly, you need a lot more frames per second, preferably 60 plus all of the time, so you can be a little bit competitive at it. With the RTX 3060, that will never happen, basically. All right, well, okay, let's see the reflections here on the water. Looks really nice, as you can see. Also, some things are still not being ray traced here. But yeah, it's very, very intensive indeed. I will enable DLSS and we'll do this all over again. Alright guys, so Nvidia DLSS is now set to quality, which means that we're running the game at 66% resolution, but it looks pretty much the same as native res. I would actually enable DLSS in this one, even without ray tracing or anything, because you do get more FPS, and the game looks basically the same. And now instead of like 40s, we're seeing 60s and the higher 50s at times, so it's still not smooth or buttery smooth, even with the Lumen stuff set to high instead of epic, guys. Also, this area of the map is actually the most intensive one when you have ray tracing enabled, because it has a lot of lights and reflections around it, of course. Gonna go down here right now, look at the ground reflections here. Yeah, those look really nice. If you don't have ray tracing enabled or the Lumen ray tracing enabled, you won't really see any of those beautiful reflections right there. So it kind of kills the immersion a little bit if you don't use RT, but I wouldn't use it in Fortnite. You aren't really gonna stop to look around at the graphics and the reflections anyways, right? Getting around the same FPS still, even looking at the city from above. Yeah, but again, it's not smooth. If it was a smooth 64 FPS average experience, I'd be fine with it, but it is not. It would still not be good for a competitive person, of course, but I don't recommend it with the 3060. Now it's Hogwarts Legacy at 1080p using Nvidia DLAA as the anti-aliasing, still no DLSS, and using the medium settings, which are the recommended settings with all of the ray tracing enabled. Ray tracing quality is set to high. Interesting, this is native 1080p resolution. DLAA is just a type of anti-aliasing like TAA, SMAA, and stuff like that, but it's using the deep learning from Nvidia, and it kind of has a DLSS look to it, but without the upscaling part, so it's not running at a lower resolution than native at the moment. Honestly, I was expecting it to get wrecked here. This is actually playable. We're in Hogsmeade. It's not the most intensive area for the GPU to render. It's actually more CPU bound around here. But I was expecting like 30, 40 FPS or so. We're not even utilizing DLSS yet, you know? Yeah, I never saw it coming. So now this area is actually way more GPU intensive, and it's starting to stutter a little bit more, but you know, this game also stutters without any ray tracing, so I guess that's normal. But let's try it now with DLSS. On quality, I believe it actually can look better than native resolution because you got the sharpness. And let's start counting our FPS. Now it should be comfortably above 60 at all times. It won't fix the stuttering issues. There is going to be that odd spike here and there sometimes in the frame time graph. But yeah, it's way more stable with DLSS. It looks basically the same in this game for whatever reason as native resolution. It works really well in this one. And it is 80 FPS on average. Like, that's really good. So the 3060 can indeed do some ray tracing in some games. If you really want that RT, you can have it on a 1080p monitor. At higher resolutions, I wouldn't do it because it gets really intensive, even without the ray tracing, let alone with RT in the recent titles. Alright, let's go to Hogsmeade now for a little bit. Take a look at the water here, not a problem. And now we are actually fully CPU bound, because this area is, again, more CPU bound, and ray tracing actually taxes the CPU just as much as it does the GPU. So CPU performance will also be a bit lower compared to without RT, especially here. Like the 5800X3D can do 90, 100 frames per second here without RT, but with RT it drops into the 60s and from 60 at times. That's crazy. Now we have Battlefield 2042 with a different kind of ray tracing at 1080p using high settings settings, ray traced ambient occlusion is turned on. So this doesn't have any reflections or anything, it's just the ambient occlusion, and it's not as intensive as the other ones in this video. And here we go, the match just started. Let's start counting our FPS as well. Oh, hello there. Whoa, it's broken field after all, guys. It actually broken field. Look at those 1% lows, by the way. Those seem extremely low to me, actually. Interesting. I was expecting a little bit smoother of an experience, but maybe it's just because the match just started once again. So it could be fine after a little while, okay? Let's keep on playing like this. I've also tried it for a little bit without ray tracing, and I was getting like 20 more FPS, so it doesn't really cut our FPS in half in this one, basically. Obviously, with that DLSS... Damn, that is a beautiful explosion right there. With DLSS enabled, we'd be seeing way higher frames per second, of course. So I will turn it on in just a little bit, because it is a first-person shooter after all. You kind of want good FPS in it. Uh-oh. Nope, I don't like turrets. That was another little stutter right there. Oh boy, lots of them. Alright guys, now that we've been playing for a while, I can say that things have smoothed out quite a bit. It feels a lot better now. Alright, there we go. I'm gonna go inside here. There's still the odd frames time spike here and there compared with no ray tracing. It runs a little bit smoother without it, but this is still super playable in my opinion. So let's set DLSS to quality now, and instead of getting like 71 FPS in this scenario, we're getting 90, 80s at times with people in front of us. Starting to stutter a little. It's still not super high refresh rate, but on like a 120 Hz or 144 Hz monitor, you will feel that smoothness difference for sure. Here we go. No. Alright, we got him. But the thing is, even though it runs well, I wouldn't enable it because it also looks really good without it, you know? And I'm not really caring too much about some good-looking shadow effects or ambient occlusion when I'm shooting other people here. And it still looks good without the ray tracing, of course. Yeah, at least on a 3060. I would gladly enable it on like a 4080 at 1440p, for example, or 1490 at 4K. But with a 3060, I'd keep it disabled, once again. Even with good FPS. Alright, but it's up to you. I'm just here to show you the performance. I'm gonna die now, probably. Why is he running away? Or driving away? What the heck? Okay, then. Hello there. No! Oh, boy. Everything is fine. There's the guy right here. And another one. All right, now we got this. Okay, there's another one there. Nice. Oh, that one is dead as well. Cool. Another one there. All right, now we're starting to get this. 100 FPS with ray tracing and DLSS. Not bad. 61% lows. It's alright. Dying Light 2 is next. We're playing at 1080p using the high-quality ray tracing preset. No upscaling at the moment, although I highly recommend it because it looks better than native resolution in this game. And these are the advanced settings, so we're using all of the ray tracing possible here. At native resolution, once again, I was expecting terrible things, but this is still playable. Not what I would recommend to anybody. Once again, like... For a 3060, I don't recommend ray tracing, let's just say that, okay? But if you really want to, it is possible to experience it for a little bit. But hey, that lighting looks pretty good around here. The fire, you know? Yeah, look at that reflecting off of the wood and the metal right there. That looks really good, alright? Oh boy, what the hell did I do? I broke something. Well, I'm gonna stop it there. It stays around like 40 frames per second for the most part at native res. But I think where it really shines is with the DLSS. Bump up that sharpness because, again, the game is really soft at native resolution, and this definitely looks way better to me than it did previously. And now it's actually performing around the same as like an RTX 4080 at 4K. But this one is at 1080p, of course. So if you don't have a 4K panel, you can actually experience high quality ray tracing with DLSS on your 1080p monitor. That rain makes everything look super blurry, dude. I don't like it too much, honestly. The droplets of rain on your camera, you know. Let's go up now. Yeah, 70s around here, not bad at all. Again, for a 3060, this is better than expected, I would say. It's quite nice. Not bad. Let's go there. Okay, now we can take a look at the city. 80 FPS, so it's not even intensive when you're looking at the city from above. That's all right. That's good to see. So, Dying Light 2, very playable on a 3060 with ray tracing. If you want that look, you can have it. Next is Spider-Man Remastered. We're playing this one at 1080p using TAA and the very high settings preset with the ray traced reflections turned on very high. Here we go. Wow, this is actually way better than I expected. Okay, it's still getting 60s. Remember, this is native 1080p using TAA anti-aliasing, or temporal anti-aliasing, and it is getting 60s still. This is the Central Park area, which is usually the most intensive area for the GPU to render in the game, but since we enabled ray tracing and we don't really have any ray tracing here in this particular area, yeah, usually you'd see higher FPS here than in the Central Park area, but now it's actually dropping a little bit further because ray tracing is enabled, and you can see that the reflections are actually pretty accurate. You know, look at those cars right there. They're exactly the same on the reflection. They don't look like super impressive, so if you're licking windows looking for that ray tracing, you might be a little bit disappointed because it looks really soft and kind of blurry in a way, but they are accurate and they are there, and that's pretty impressive, of course. For native resolution, it's doing a really fantastic job. Yes, it does drop from 60 FPS in more intensive areas, but still, it's RT, you know? I thought it would get us way lower frames per second than what we're seeing right here. So let's enable DLSS on quality this time around and see how it does. Wow, what a massive jump in performance. All right, let's start counting the FPS. It's a little bit sharper of an image here compared to TAA, so a lot of people might like it, but you can see a bit more shimmery and aliasing as a result of the sharper image and lower resolution internal, of course. Now let's lick these windows right here. That's still looking all right, you know. It might be slightly softer than native resolution, or maybe a little bit more noisy, I guess, the reflections on ray tracing with DLSS enabled, but it's really close anyways. Even down here, it shouldn't really drop too much. Yep, 60s. Previously we were getting 50s, so much better. Even the people, which usually aren't really ray traced because it's way more intensive to ray trace every single people, you know, they're being reflected when off screen. So it's doing a great job here, guys. Now it's the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Next Gen update. We're playing this one at 1080p using the Ultra Ray Tracing preset here, which enables everything here under ray tracing, TAAU anti-aliasing, and everything else is set to the Ultra settings preset. I just disabled chromatic aberration and blur over here. You can see pretty much everything is maxed out where it matters. And, well, this is definitely not something that you should do on a 3060. As you can see, it gets 25 frames per second. So unless you really enjoy the movies, for example, with 24 FPS, it is actually really close to that, you know? It's a cinematic experience, I would say. Yeah, it's awful, of course, so nobody should do this, and we should try it out with DLSS. Here we go, DLSS set to quality right now, and it gave us 10 frames per second, so it is playable now, above 30 frames per second. It will probably drop in more intensive scenarios, but hey, at least it's not 25 anymore, right? It's still far from ideal, I think, even on a single-player title like The Witcher 3. Like, again, it will definitely drop from 30, as you can see right there. A little bit of vegetation on screen will do it. So it's still very, very bad, actually, even with the DLSS. So I'm just gonna test it out using the RT preset, which just enables ray tracing with global illumination on performance and leaves everything else off. Anti-aliasing is still set to DLSS and quality, and everything else is still set to ultra settings. And alright, this is much more playable now. Although, I think I would just disable it altogether and play with 60 frames per second because, you know, it's still 30s. But hey, since it's finally playable, I'm gonna start counting the FPS. That grass looks awful. What the heck? What is that? Like, It's a smudgy mess. Is it DLSS related? Maybe. I don't know. What the heck? Okay, let's just go to the Novigrad city right now and see the FPS inside. It should be higher because it is more CPU bound here and we don't have a CPU bottleneck. Although ray tracing is also super intensive on the CPU, so I'm curious. Yeah, no GPU utilization fluctuation, getting 40 something FPS, even 50 at times. Yep, alright, so it's playable, but it's not ideal. Ooh la la. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this is Control, the one that started it all in ray tracing. Well, at least it was the first good-looking game with RT, I guess. Playing at 1080p using high settings and the ray tracing high preset as well. This is native resolution at the moment. It looks really soft, but it is very playable. It's getting 50s. It's not bad, as you can see. You can shoot things around absolutely fine. Oh yeah, I guess there's gonna be a little bit of a fight around here. Can I go down there? Thank you. Okay, there we go. All right, let's kill these bastards now. Oh, this is not a bastard. Okay. Right. So it's quite playable here on the 3060. That's to be expected because when this game came out, we had like 20 series, not the 30 series, and the 30 series was a substantial upgrade in terms of RT performance over the 20 series. So if this was made to run well on the 20 series, of course it's running well on the 3060 as well. However, it is still 1080p. Anyways, let's enable Nvidia DLSS, which is set to quality, because on quality it actually sets the game to 720p and then upscales it, and it looks pretty much the same as native resolution, and it is getting 90 FPS or 80 something frames per second instead of the 50s that we were seeing. So this is a much better experience, and honestly this is how this game was meant to be played in the first place, with ray tracing and DLSS enabled. What the hell is that? Oh, it's smoke. Okay, all right, let's go. Let's go. We can do this now. Whatever your name is, I don't remember, honestly. I haven't played this game in, like, ages. Let's go. Let's continue. Also, didn't I have, like, a gravity gun or something? Oh, boy. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe E? No? G? No? Nothing? Oh, boy. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. No! I died again. Are you serious? Well, point is, it's gonna get like 90 FPS average, 60 plus all of the time, and it is actually a really playable and good looking experience here in Control. Next we got Watch Dogs Legion from Ubisoft. They don't have a lot of bugs this time, okay? So we're playing this one at 1080p, if you want to see 3060 is right there once again, and we're using DirectX 12 Ultra settings. These two are turned off because I don't like those effects, and ray tracing on high. DLSS is off as well, and it is actually quite playable, as you can see, getting 40-ish frames per second. Once again, it doesn't really justify the performance hit, I think. The visuals aren't really that much better than if you ran the game without RT, and it would easily get 60 plus FPS all of the time with the 3060 without the ray tracing. But, you know, you get some prettier reflections there in the puddles, for example. Look at that. There is also reflections on the car, as you can see. Yeah, that's probably the most impressive thing here in this one. Those look quite nice indeed. But, you know, it's 40-something FPS, so I wouldn't really trade the higher FPS for this experience. That's where DLSS comes in handy. I'll set that to quality here, and I can tell that the image is a little bit softer, but still pretty good looking. And now we can have those sweet 60+ FPS. Not all of the time, probably, because it's really close to 60 at the moment. It will definitely drop in so... what happened there? What the heck? Yeah, it will definitely drop in, like, bridges and stuff. Those are really intensive in this game for some reason. It's pretty weird. As well as the park with a lot of trees and vegetation and so on. But, you know, when you're gonna see the ray traced stuff, the best is near vehicles and maybe the water as well. I'm gonna try to find a bridge. Oh, what the... We need to find a car first. That's definitely what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna restart the FPS again. Oh, look at that. Dropping into the 50s in this area. Maybe because we are seeing a little bit of vegetation around us this time around. Yep, it gets really intensive, as you can see. I'm so sorry, people. I'm so sorry, but the cars don't handle right in this one. All right, here we go. Bridge area now. Let's go. Oh, boy. Oh boy, okay, well, they actually fixed it, because this used to be the most intensive area in the game, and now it doesn't drop too much here. But look at that water, by the way, it's so soft. There is absolutely zero detail there. I wonder if I disable the DLSS, if we can actually get those details back a little bit. It's still very soft though. And lastly, we have Minecraft RTX, or the Windows 10 edition. Java doesn't really work with the RT cores on the GPUs. We're playing at 1080p. The desktop is set to 1080p, and we're using the high settings, I would say, using render distance at 10, and ray tracing is off at the moment. Just to take a look at this big city, you know, without ray tracing. It looks impressive, I would say, but it's kind of lifeless, you know? Basically, Minecraft, interestingly, is the game where ray tracing makes the most difference visually, which is super weird, because, you know, it's Minecraft. Let's enable RT, which enables upscaling by default, or DLSS, but I want to see it at native resolution first, and just wow, that is a totally different thing, right? This wasn't even lighting up previously. Holy crap, I'm gonna start counting the FPS, fly around this big city for a little bit, see the frames, see the different textures, and the transparency on objects and stuff like that. It's breathtaking, Minecraft like this, honestly. So it is already playable like this, but honestly, when you play Minecraft, I'm not really looking for 30 FPS. I want those 60 at least, you know, and that's where the DLSS comes in. Unfortunately, it's still not enough for us to get 60 plus FPS. As you can see, sometimes you get those 60s, but other times, especially if you fly near the objects, ray trace. Oh my god, look at that reflection there. That looks beautiful. Yeah, it drops by a lot. It's not that much better than native resolution. Maybe you get like 10 more FPS or so on average. And I mean, it kind of looks like native resolution. So if you are playing this game with RT enabled, definitely utilize some... Oh, that's interesting. Some upscaling with it. And lastly, just to test it a bit in a more normal scenario, here we have the Minecraft RTX medieval thingy or map or whatever, and it is getting way higher FPS. Of course, we have way less ray tracing things going on right now. You can still see the reflections of the things on the water, which is nice. That's all ray traced, of course. And you do get 60 plus FPS. So if you're playing a normal world, you can indeed achieve decent frame rates, you know, very playable ones, 60 plus all of the time. But if you go crazy and you build something huge like the previous map, well, things are gonna drop by quite a bit, right? Also, seems like we are actually CPU bound. I didn't notice it. Maybe in the previous map we were also CPU bound. That's pretty interesting. Once again, even with an almost top-of-the-line CPU, like the 5800X3D, I say almost because last generation it was on par with the 12900K, and now we got 13th gen and Ryzen 7000, but yeah, it's still pretty fast and not something that you'd usually pair with a 3060. It's bottlenecking it and getting 90s and 80s here. So CPU is only capable of that, basically. And it's finally conclusion time, my friends. The 3060 is... it's not a good ray tracing card, is it? It's decent for like entry-level ray tracing, I would say. It's a very good 1080p gaming GPU. It's even capable of playing games at 1440p with ease. But if you throw ray tracing at it, you just wrecked everything. Maybe I would use it in a couple of titles that I played here today, just because, well, the graphics are that much better, for example, in Control, but mostly, I would definitely have that disabled on a 3060. That's been it, my friends. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you tomorrow in the Sunday video. I don't know what's happening out there. I just heard something falling. Maybe it's my dog. You cannot make that noise, boy. Shame on you. You cannot do that, okay? I can't be mad at you. See you guys. Love you all. Bye-bye.